Apocalypse. The mutant immortal, older than the world. How sad this must be to know that natural selection has brought you here.
In a hidden refuge, Logan wakes Moira. It costs them everything to get this information, and Logan force feeds it into her mind. The old man, Apocalypse, said that once this was done, there was no point in waiting to send her on her way. For there is nothing to save here. Today we're going to be talking about the goings-on in House of X. This ambitious storyline aims to change the history and future of the X-Men forever, so you don't want to miss a single minute of this video. Also, if you like Comic Island, be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out our Patreon page in the video description below. Now, as the scope of House of X and its companion series Powers of 10 are starting to unfold, we're starting to get a bigger picture of what's going on in this story and why just about every X-Men fan reading this thing just can't stop talking about it. Everything kind of hinges on never-before-revealed information concerning Moira Mactaggert, and how she's been secretly shaping the history of the X-Men since the beginning. For those that don't know, Moira's been an X-Men character for some time. However, up until now, she's been depicted as a human scientist working for the betterment of mutants. She set up a famous refuge for them on Muir Island and was an essential part in curing the legacy virus, while also being a key figure in any number of other classic X-Men related stories. That's kind of the big thing about House of X in general, the one thing you just sort of have to buy as a reader, that Moira has been and always was a mutant as of this story. It's a big ask of a reader on the part of Jonathan Hickman. This was never mentioned until now, even though there were many ways to detect mutants, though it should be noted there are perhaps an equal number of ways Charles Xavier and Moira could have been able to conceal Moira's mutant status along the way. It's not story-breaking, but yes, I have heard from some of our viewers about this bothering them, and yes, it does kind of feel like the sort of thing a television series might do late in its run. Supporting characters with no powers or abilities do tend to develop traits like these late into the lifespan of any given franchise, and Marvel has certainly not been immune to that effect with other characters. But if you can accept this, and if you can sort of just allow this change to take place, because you kind of need to accept this if you are going to accept House of X. She has a very unique set of powers. Every time she dies, the timeline is reset, but each time Moira is born with every memory from every lifetime she has ever led. Over many lifetimes, 10 to be exact, hence the name Powers of 10, which I erroneously read as Powers of X in earlier videos. But the point is, over these lifetimes, Moira has tried many things to better ensure the survival of her people. Each one of her plans and designs has led to disaster of some form or another, with the Earth turning into a hellscape. A recurring series of patterns have emerged, mostly centered around a cycle of AI. Humans build sentinels, which get more powerful and smarter over time, until the machines eventually take over completely, usually with the development of the ultimate form of a sentinel known as Nimrod. A goofy name, sure, but for those of you in the know, or even for those of you that saw the opening of this very video, where Nimrod taunts Apocalypse like he's nothing, this Sentinel is not one to mess around with. It's nearly impossible to destroy and can replicate itself indefinitely. It has little regard for human life and will hunt down mutants relentlessly, while it continues to get smarter and smarter until eventually it will convert all of Earth itself into one giant supercomputer composed of the entire planet. That's the main thrust of what's going on in House of X. We're seeing the result of Moira having all these memories and this knowledge, and how it's changed and will change the X-Men forever. Early on in this new timeline, Moira shared this information with Charles, who used it to shape a new path for mutant kind, more ambitious in scope than anything conceived of for the X-Men before. With Charles inhabiting the body of the mutant Phantom X, and I'm not going to get into the details of that right now, he and Moira and Magneto established a new nation for mutants everywhere. Unlike the island nation of Genosha, though, this nation would be in the sentient realm of Krakoa, allowing mutants to be flexible in their location and teleport around the world at will. In an effort to protect the species, the X-Men have begun to establish their own culture and language, too. while giving themselves diplomatic immunity to the rest of the world, essentially telling the human world they would no longer be subservient to their laws. It's all a big change, and big moves are happening here, but Powers of 10 gets into why the X-Men feel they need to go to these extremes. No matter what Moira has done, nothing has stopped the world from going horribly wrong. We've seen hints and echoes of this throughout the history of the X-Men comics. The Age of Apocalypse, the Days of Future Past. That's one thing I love about House of X in particular. Not only is it a cool direction for the X-Men going forward, it also goes a long way to explain a lot about the X-Men and their history, and even that of the general history of the Marvel comic book universe. All the deaths and rebirths, alternate timelines, potential futures, retcons, decimation, and all the weird stuff with Scarlet Witch. And so much more is adequately explained, if you ask me, by the dynamics and history of Moira trying to steer the X-Men in a different direction over time. Even her being brilliant and able to do stuff like cure the legacy virus is explained well by the many lifetimes she's lived. By now she could have the equivalent knowledge of so many doctorates that she'd be able to have one of the greatest minds in the entire mutant race, while allowing them to steer clear of any number of key disasters. After that, the sky's the limit. I feel like literally anything could happen next, not only in House of X, but beyond. So many ideas are being presented here that are worth exploring further. So many cool characters and concepts are being floated around here that I hardly have time to talk about all of them. Again, it kind of depends on whether or not you can accept Moira has become a mutant, or more accurately, has been a mutant all this time. It's a hell of a bargain, though, if you ask me. One somewhat incredulous plot point in exchange for literally decades worth of potential storylines. I will happily make that trade. It's exactly the sort of shot in the arm the X-Men needed, something to finally get past all the doom and gloom of the Decimation era, and finally getting us out of the shadow of Marvel's little temper tantrum in regards to the film rights of these characters. We are here in a new era of X-Men history that opens up a whole new world of potential ideas and storylines. From mutants bred with multiple traits of the X-Men, to Apocalypse of all people, leading the last of the surviving mutants on an Earth where the human race has been forced to religiously serve the Sentinels. It's so easy to safely say I have never seen or read any X-Men comic series quite like this before. Even at the height of Chris Claremont's time with the team, it never quite felt this imaginative or so full and packed of ideas. We'll have to see if Hickman can stick the landing, but I'm pretty optimistic at this point. A lesser writer could have easily screwed up a story like this. We are, after all, talking about rewriting fundamental aspects of X-Men history here. But so far, he's absolutely nailed it. This is a well-conveyed story that, so long as it doesn't close out any of these great ideas, really could change things for the X-Men forever. So as long as Hickman doesn't say wipe it all away and say it was all just some character's crazy dream, then this is history in the making for the X-Men in a big, profound way. I have a lot of love for the art in both House of X and Powers of 10 as well, aside from the imaginative way files and information is displayed on interlude pages like this one. The main art is full of color and details that make so many scenes fascinating to look at. This panel by R.B. Silva and Marte Garcia, for example, is just so interesting. It says so much about what humanity has become in this dark future that the text itself couldn't say on its own. A real and proper comic book, blending the written word with visual art to tell a story that has influenced me emotionally. So if you haven't been reading House of X and Powers of 10, I absolutely recommend you check it out for yourself. It has been an unforgettable story so far that has really taken me back by how much I've been enjoying it. Thanks for watching this video. I've been very much enjoying House of X so far, and I'm curious what you all think in the comments section below. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and keep reading comics.